Good morning and welcome to Rosebread Homestead, where our community focuses on self-reliance, food security, and emergency preparedness. And we love it when you all subscribe to us and share our videos so we can get the word out on our scientific-based videos on all of those topics. So today I have a question for you. What is this mysterious green powder? Because today we are going to make fresh green pasta, and we'll get on that in just a moment. You might want to watch our first video on pasta, which is just fresh egg pasta. Each time we do a new video on pasta, I am going to be introducing a new technique or a new ingredient, something new about how to make this pasta. And today we are going to make green pasta. So what are our choices when we want to make green pasta? Well, the old familiar, of course, is spinach. And there are lots and lots of ways to get the spinach or whatever vegetable we're going to use for the coloring into the pasta. My preferred way is to do powdered. And so I have been powdering a lot of vegetables lately. I either dehydrate them first or freeze dry them. In the case of this one, I did both, freeze dry and dehydrate, and then I powdered both of them, and both of those powders are mixed in here. Now, if you watched our asparagus week videos, especially number 3, which was the meals, you saw some green pasta, and I promised then that I would show you how to make it. So yes, today we are going to be making green from asparagus pasta, and it is really good. The advantage of adding these vegetable powders to pasta is that it adds fiber, it adds nutrition, so it is always a really good idea. Now, if you've watched our first pasta video, we're going to use the same basic recipe. We won't be deviating from that for at least one more video, and then we're going to switch away from egg-based pasta into water-based pasta. But right now, the new thing for this one is that we are going to add a vegetable powder. So I have the 300 grams of flour right here, and we're going to mix it in our food processor instead of doing it. If you've looked online, a lot of people do what they call the well method, and this is far easier and accomplishes the same thing. And to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of this Diamond Crystal kosher salt. Now, as I explained before, you don't want to use 2 teaspoons of salt unless you use this particular brand, because they've really fluffed this up so that it dissolves really well. If you are using any other kind of salt, just use 1 teaspoon. And there is always controversy in every aspect of making your own pasta. And one of those controversies is, do we add salt to the pasta or not? Or do we just put it in the water? Well, here's the thing. We're going to be freezing this today. I'm working on a meat sauce that we're going to do a video on, and when I get that recipe perfected, we'll bring back the frozen pasta and show you how to cook it and serve it with a delicious meat sauce. But a lot of people say that you need to not salt the pasta, but salt the water. Well, I've tried it both ways, and my preference is to do both because the pasta needs salt. However we get it in there, you decide, but for me, I'm going to put it right in the pasta, and then we also put a great deal of salt in the water. And it only takes just very few minutes when we cook fresh pasta, even fresh frozen pasta. It's only about 4 minutes. And so we need a lot of salt in there too. So here we go. So I have the salt in there and the 300 grams of flour. And I'm just using this King Arthur's, the flour that I always use for everything, which is their unbleached. And again, we're going to roll this out with a rolling pin because I do not have a pasta machine. I've decided I am going to get one, but I'm going to wait for just a little bit. Because we're using this flour instead of 00 flour, which is very, very fine, it is more difficult to get it as thin as we need it, but we're going to try our best. Now I'm going to be using 2 tablespoons of this asparagus powder in here. Now because I'm adjusting the recipe a little bit and putting more dry ingredients in, I also have to adjust the water. And so here I have 2 fresh eggs and 3 yolks with enough water to equal 185 grams. And by far, when you are making pasta, you want to do the ingredients by weight and not by volume using measuring cups. This way, you're much more accurate, and this is reliable and reproducible. So to compensate for the 2 tablespoons of the powder, I'm going to add an additional 2 tablespoons of water. I have reconstituted this powder, and it is about a 1-to-1 ratio to get it to the thickness, the consistency that works with pasta. And so here we go. I'm going to just whisk these around to mix the dry ingredients together. And now I'm just going to add the eggs and the water all at the same time. And I'm going to work on this through pulsing it and just spinning it until I form a dough. And it takes a little bit of time. It looks like this is going pretty fast. So I'm going to pulse this. It is starting to come together. And that looks like it. That didn't take long at all. Okay. Now we're going to dump everything out on the counter. We want every last bit of flour, all the little crumbs of dough, everything together. We don't want to lose any of our ingredients. And just a few in here. Now, with pasta dough, we need to knead this, and we'll be kneading this flour in because it's part of the original recipe, so I'm picking up that flour. And as a very experienced bread maker, I can tell you that kneading pasta is very, very, very different. So I'm having to work on my technique just a little bit. Now this feels a little bit dry to me, but I'm going to not make a final decision about whether to wet my hands and work in a little bit more moisture until I have kneaded it for about a minute to see what else it might pick up. And it may be that with that asparagus powder, for this recipe it might need a little bit more moisture. I'm perfecting my method, so don't be critical. It's not like bread. You just fold over a little tiny piece and not half of it. Oh, it's kind of getting a little sticky, so that's good. See if I can pick up these last pieces. So the ideal is to just knead it like this on the counter and not have to add any flour or any liquid. And that is the advantage of using a recipe with precise weighted ingredients, which is what I needed as a novice. All right, so the next step, this isn't going to need anything. Doesn't need any more liquid, it doesn't need any more flour. So now that I have determined that, the next step is to knead this for 8 minutes. And for me, that's a workout. So I'm going to set my phone for 8 minutes, and we'll be back when I'm done with that. So see you in 8 minutes. So the buzzer just went off, so this is done. And check out how soft and smooth this is. Well, you can't tell soft, but you can probably see smooth. And it is beautiful, beautiful dough. If you take a really good look at this, you can see that the asparagus is variegated in color. There are all different colors of little green specks in here. That asparagus powder is showing its true colors. And that's part of the fiber that will be added to this pasta. So the next step with the pasta is to wrap it in plastic wrap and keep it out on the kitchen counter for at least 30 minutes to help the gluten develop. And it can be left out longer than that, all day long, even just so long as we finished it up by the end of the day. So we'll be back in about 30 minutes and get on to the cutting of the pasta. In just a little over 30 minutes, and it looks like our pasta has been sitting out and is perfect. Okay, we're going to do our best to roll this out with a rolling pin today. Very nice texture. Forgot I need this still. So I'm going to just rewrap this half so that it does not dry out. Set it aside. And we are going to work with this one. So I am going to just flour the workspace a little bit. And I'm going to try to form this into a rectangle, sort of ish, before I get started. That helps with where we want to go ultimately with it. So here we go. Well, I've been doing this for about 10 minutes. It's still not as thin as I would like it, but I can certainly see my hand through it if I hold it up to the sunlight. That's what I did when I was having my babies. The father of my children, my first husband, was very much a brunette, and I always wanted a redheaded baby, and so I would take them out at sunset and hold them up so that the sunlight, the setting sun, could shine through their hair so that it would look a little bit red. But I do have some redheaded grandchildren, so that's great. Okay, so this is about as thin as I'm going to be able to make it. Hopefully, if you're doing it by hand, you can do it better. I always start in the middle and pull or push. Okay, so it's beautiful. So I'm just going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to just work with the flour that I'm putting on now. Will wash off when we cook it. It is just to keep it from sticking to itself as we get it ready to cut. So I'm just going to roll it up halfway this way. Just loosely roll it. And very loosely roll it this way as well, so that they meet kind of in the middle. And I'm still doing ribbon pasta because that's all I know right now. I'm going to perfect ribbon pasta and then move on to greater degree of difficulty. All right, these turned out pretty nice. Sprinkle with flour so that these don't stick when I put them in that cute little knot thing. And all right, I am going to finish this whole batch, and we'll come back after I have rolled and cut everything so you can see the results. Our green pasta project is finished. Here it is. We have 6 blobs of asparagus pasta. What a great use of asparagus powder this is. The whole time I was making this, I could smell the asparagus, and it will be a wonderful addition to a lovely pasta meal. So we will continue with our adventures in pasta going forward. Next up, red pasta. Hope you join us then. Thanks so much, and we'll see you at our next video.